Think about the strangest fact of your life. For the first year or two, you didn't even know you were a person. Not in the way you do now, at least. Today, you wake up and instantly think, I am me. I have a name. I have things to do. But baby you? No such luck. There was no inner narrator, no little voice saying, this is happening to me. Instead, your brain was just soaking things in. Pure sensation. Pure chaos. A sentient sponge without a sense of self. Psychologists call this self-concept, and it doesn't really turn on until about 18 to 24 months. Before that, life is just raw experience. Sounds, colors, touches, with no sense of ownership. Imagine staring at your hand but not realizing it's yours. Imagine crying for your mom. Not because you knew she was your mom, but because she was just a warm, familiar source of food and comfort. Without this sense of self, memory as we know it can't really form. After all, autobiographical memory requires a main character. You need an I to pin the story on. Without that, there's just floating fragments. A sound, a feeling, a blurry image, but no me to tie them together. It's like trying to write a diary before realizing you're the author. Researchers have a clever way to test when babies first become self-aware. The mirror test. They dab a bit of paint or lipstick on a baby's nose and place them in front of a mirror. If the baby touches their own nose, congratulations, they've realized the reflection is them. If not, they just try to boop the other baby in the mirror, blissfully unaware. This usually happens somewhere around the 2-year mark, which is also when the first real long-term memories start sticking. Philosophers have wrestled with this too. John Locke, centuries ago, defined personal identity as the continuity of consciousness, the ability to connect past and present experiences. In other words, without memory, you aren't really you. By that definition, baby you wasn't a person in the way you understand personhood today. You were alive, sure, but you weren't yet the protagonist of your own story. And that's the first piece of the puzzle. You don't remember being a baby because, in a very real sense, there was no you there to remember. Just vibes, Cheerios, and the occasional meltdown. But the mystery deepens because even once the sense of self begins to form, there's another massive obstacle in the way. Your brain itself was in a totally different state, like it was tripping. Now here's where things get really wild. Scientists say that being a baby is a lot like being on psychedelics 24/7. That's not an exaggeration. When researchers look at infant brainwaves, they don't see the neat, steady rhythms of adult brains. Instead, they see something closer to the patterns adults experience under the influence of LSD or deep meditation. Instead of the fast, focused beta waves that help us navigate reality, babies spend much of their waking life in theta waves, slow, dreamlike states that blur the line between waking and sleeping. Translation: baby you wasn't present in the way you are now. Time felt weird. Space felt fluid. Everything was magical, strange, and overwhelming. Ever seen a baby stare at a ceiling fan like it's revealing the secrets of the universe? That's exactly what's going on. Their perception of the world is so unstructured that even the simplest things feel cosmic. But here's the problem. Memory requires stability. To record an experience, the brain has to pin it down. Time, place, self. If your consciousness is shifting and dreamy, those anchors never form. Imagine trying to write in a journal while floating in zero gravity and spinning in circles. Sure, the ink hits the page, but it's smudged, scrambled, and unreadable. That's baby memory. And it wasn't just perception. Think about how adults under psychedelics often describe ego dissolution, the sense that the boundaries of self melt away. That's basically how your infant brain operated by default. No self, no fixed reality, just waves of sensation and wonder. Beautiful? Yes. Memorable? No chance. Here's the kicker. Some scientists suggest this altered state might actually be an evolutionary advantage. Babies need to learn about the world at lightning speed, and this fluid state of consciousness makes their brains extra plastic, extra absorbent. They're not locked into rigid categories yet. They can absorb language, social cues, and even physics just by watching things fall off a table. So while you were busy gawking at light bulbs and chewing on your own foot, Your brain was in hyperlearning mode. But in the process, it sacrificed memory stability. You weren't forming a scrapbook. You were living inside a Salvador Dali painting, where clocks melt, objects blur, and nothing sticks. Which brings us to the next twist in the story. Even if you had managed to form memories in that dreamlike haze, your brain had a plan. And that plan was to delete them. Let's say, for argument's sake, that baby you did manage to form some memories in that hazy, dreamlike state. What happened to them? Well, your brain deleted them. On purpose. This process is called neural pruning, and it's as ruthless as it sounds. Think of your brain as a gigantic garden. In the first few years of life, it grows connections like wild vines, millions of new synapses sprouting every second. By age 3, your brain has twice as many neural connections as an adult brain. Twice. It's like someone overplanted seeds, and now the garden is an overwhelming jungle. Sounds great, right? More connections, more intelligence. Not exactly. A chaotic jungle isn't efficient. To function well, your brain needs strong, useful pathways, not endless weak ones. So around age 3 to 5, your brain brings out the shears and starts pruning. Snip, snip. Connections that aren't reinforced, gone. Pathways that aren't tied to language, emotion, or survival, cut. And guess what gets tossed first? Those fragile, context-free baby memories. Think of it like your phone running out of storage. The system doesn't ask which blurry toddler photo you want to keep. It just auto-deletes the junk to free up space for more important files. Brutal but necessary. Philosophers might call this the wisdom of forgetting. Nietzsche once argued that forgetting is not a weakness but a form of strength. It clears the way for growth, allowing us to live in the present instead of drowning in irrelevant detail. Your brain was doing exactly that, wiping the slate clean so you could build a usable sense of the world. And in a way, it makes sense. Do you really need to remember what it felt like to gum a teething ring for the first time? Or that one random Tuesday when you discovered your own toes? Not really. What you do need is the ability to walk, talk, recognize danger, and connect with people. So the brain clears away the noise to prioritize survival and efficiency. Feels a little unfair. All those baby adventures, lost to the pruning shears. But without it, your brain would be a hoarder's attic, overflowing with random junk and no space to store new, meaningful memories. So, even if you had memories as a baby, chances are they were deliberately purged in your brain's great spring cleaning. And while that sounds harsh, it was actually the best gift your brain could give you, the capacity to grow. But this pruning wasn't the only reason memories didn't stick. There's another piece to the puzzle. Your brain was learning so fast, it couldn't bother with note-taking. Here's something counterintuitive. The faster your brain is learning, the worse it gets at remembering specific events. And in your earliest years, your brain was in God mode for learning. Think about it. From the moment you were born until around age 3, you were processing information at a rate you'll never experience again. Language, motor skills, recognizing faces, understanding social cues, learning physics by dropping sippy cups off high chairs. All of this was being crammed in simultaneously. But here's the trade-off. Instead of saving detailed snapshots of each little moment, your brain used those experiences to build rules and systems. It didn't care about the exact Tuesday when you realized that the ball rolls away when pushed. What mattered was the principle. Objects move when force is applied. That's far more valuable long-term. In psychology, researchers sometimes compare this to scaffolding. When constructing a building, you put up temporary support structures. They're essential during the building phase, but once the building stands on its own, you take the scaffolding down. Baby memories worked the same way. Once your brain locked in big ideas like cause and effect or object permanence, the raw experiences that built them weren't needed anymore. Down came the scaffolding, and with it, the memory. It's a little like downloading the entire internet on dial-up. You can't keep every page, every image. Instead, your brain compresses the data into usable shortcuts. That's why you don't remember your first spoon, but you do understand how spoons work without thinking about it. There's also a survival angle here. Remember, your baby brain had limited storage and energy. Recording endless play-by-play details would have been a waste. Instead, it focused on building efficient systems that could keep you alive and help you thrive later. As much as you might want a mental highlight reel of your baby adventures, your brain was too busy rewriting its own software. Philosophically, this raises an interesting point. Maybe memory isn't really about preserving the past. Maybe it's about preparing for the future. The baby brain wasn't keeping a diary, it was coding a program. And once the program was installed, the setup files got trashed. Which brings us to the final piece of this mystery. If all those early memories are gone, does that mean baby you is lost forever? Not quite, because while you can't consciously recall them, those ghost memories may still be influencing you from the shadows. Here's the twist. Even though you can't recall your baby years, parts of them may still live inside you, just not in ways you can consciously access. Psychologists call this phenomenon implicit memory, memories that shape your behavior without ever showing up in your awareness. Think of it like background code running your operating system. You don't see it, but it quietly shapes how the program works. For example, early bonding experiences with caregivers, how safe, warm, or neglected you felt, may echo in how you form relationships today. You may not remember being comforted or not when you cried as an infant, but your nervous system does. That's why a tone of voice, a smell, or even a subtle gesture can spark feelings you can't logically explain. Your body remembers what your mind has long forgotten. In therapy, this sometimes shows up as what's called body memory. A certain smell makes you anxious. A particular sound makes you relax. You don't have a story for it, but your body carries the imprint of those first few years. Some researchers even suggest these hidden memories can influence our attachment styles, fears, and sense of safety in the world. Philosophically, it's fascinating. If your earliest experiences shape who you are without you being able to recall them, then who's really in charge of you? Are you simply the sum of conscious memories, or do these ghostly, unreachable impressions define you even more deeply? There are also rare cases where fragments of early memories do resurface, sometimes in dreams, hypnosis, or deep meditation. But here's the catch. It's nearly impossible to know if those memories are real or if your brain just fabricated them to fill the gap. That's why people who swear they remember being in the crib might actually be recalling a story told by their parents, a photo they saw, or a mix of imagination and fact. So, in a sense, your baby memories aren't gone, they're just locked away in a language your adult mind can't translate. They hum quietly in the background, influencing you in ways you'll never fully trace. And that's the poetic irony. You don't remember being a baby, but being a baby is still part of who you are. Every lesson, every feeling, every survival instinct coded into your brain in those first fragile years is still with you, guiding your steps even now.